As I think you know, I've been watching a lot of cartoons with my kids, and that's inspired me a lot, especially when I see these 3D cartoons, Coco Melon in this particular case. And so I want to do something really simple. This would be really good for beginners. If you know just a little bit about Blender and the interface and how to select things and how to move around. So I'll do my best to explain what I'm doing. If you are a relative beginner and you want to follow along, we're going to be creating this cute little nightstand, and we're going to make this lamp, and we're going to make this clock. All right, I'm going to put them all together, and it's just a small little scene of little 3D items. All right, so I'm in Blender 2.79. I haven't updated yet to 2.8. It shouldn't matter too much if you're still using an earlier version of Blender. Okay, so when we start off, we've got this default scene with the camera, the cube, and the lamp, and we start off in Blender render, and I'm going to switch right away over to cycles because we'll be using that. And because of my video card, I'm able to switch over here to GPU compute. I don't know if you have that capability or not, but we're going to switch to cycles render. And I'm going to hit A, and that's going to select everything, X, and we're going to delete everything. Notice my screencast keys are on so you can see what keys I'm hitting as well. All right, so we're going to create the nightstand. So I'm going to hit 7, and that's going to bring us to top view, and 5 is orthographic, looking straight down. And we're going to make the nightstand by starting off with a plane. So I'm going to go Shift A to bring in bring up the add menu, mesh, plane. And we could actually just leave it at its default size. So there you see a nice square. All right. If I hit 1 to look from the front view, we're looking straight on at the night table. It's very thin, and I think we need some more thickness. So we're going to extrude this. So I'm going to hit Tab. And I have this little pie menu, but if you just go from, object mode into edit, you probably just go right into edit mode. My dogs are playing around. Okay, so I've got that. Make sure it's all selected. And from the front view, I'm going to hit E to extrude, and I'm going to pull with the Z arrow. I can pull up or I can pull down. Now, if I pull down a little ways, and I'm going to suggest we go down about 2 sort of grid units, I get this darkish color here, and that's because some of my polys are facing the wrong way. If I instead pull up 2 grid units, it stays light gray all the way through, and I don't have to worry about my polys facing the wrong direction. All right, so I'm going to show you. I mean, I could just leave it at that. But if I did go down like that and I deselect and some of my polys are dark, what I have to do is I have to hit A and then recalculate. So I go Control N. You see it says make normals consistent. So all of my normals are facing outwards. All of my polygon sides are facing outwards, and they'll render properly. All right, so there is the beginning of my table. Now we can get rid of this grid floor here. We're not going to need that by hitting N to open the side panel, and there's all this stuff. I'm going to scroll down to where it says display. Let me close up some of these so that's not distracting. Under display, uncheck grid floor, and then click N to close that again. So we have just this square right there. Okay, now if I go back into object mode, you will see that this is very, very sharp. It looks a little bit like the top of a nightstand, but it's a little bit too sharp. And so we're going to need to do something to give this some smoothness, some roundness, so that we don't have these very sharp edges. Now, if you try to bevel this like this, if you come up to the modifier stack and choose the wrench and hit add modifier, bevel, we'll get this effect. Now I can switch this over to segments 2, and I can pull this number down a ways. And that will start to give us a bit of roundness, but it's not very pleasing yet. You can try smoothing. And that looks okay, but it's not really rounded or anything. If we come back to the diagram, it's nice and round. You may not be able to see very well there, so that's not what we're going to do. Let's switch back. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go back into edit mode. and we're going to add some curves to this. So I'm going to switch from vertex selection, which is these points here, over to edge selection. And I'm going to click on this vertical edge here. I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to click on this one. And use my mouse wheel. I'm going to turn around. They're still selected. Shift and click there. And shift and click there. So I've selected all of the vertical edges there. And I'm going to bevel these now, but I'm going to bevel them by hand. And the hotkey or shortcut key is Control B. So watch my mouse cursor here, and I go Control B, and you see a dotted line leading right to the center of my object. If I now just pull my mouse, I'm not even pressing any buttons, you can see that it starts cutting into my table there. So just pull a little ways until you are satisfied with how far. And I can't tell you how far, just do a little bit. And then start rolling your mouse wheel up. 1, 2, 3. And you can still adjust this, and that's how we're going to round the corners a bit. So I put 3 segments. I might go 1 more. That's 4. So I can go back to 0. 1, 2, 3, 4. Click. And I'm going to hit A to deselect, and then I'm just going to pan around and look. Now you can see I've rolled my mouse up. But as soon as we've done that, we've created polygons that are not 4-sided or 4 vertices. I'm going to switch over to vertex. And if we look at this one, and I'm going to hold shift, 2, 3, 4. This is a quad. And if I zoom in a little bit over here, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's another quad. 1, this one here. All right, switch to face selection. By the way, I can go Control Tab, and I get this mesh select mode. That's the same thing as down here. So I can Control Tab, select face. That's a quad. That's a quad. That's a quad. Okay, you can't really tell, but the points are in there. This, however, is not a quad. If I go back to vertex, you will see it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, another 6, another 6. This is not a quad here. And you can kind of tell by trying to put in an edge loop whether it's a quad. So if I go, just hover my mouse over here, if I go Control R, you see that pink or purple line that goes all the way through. All right, it's cutting all the quads. I'm not going to apply that and just hit escape. But if I go Control R here, you can see the pink line there, but you don't see it going across the top. Okay, and you won't see it going across the bottom because these have more than 4 sides, and these are n-gons. And it's not really a problem for what we want to do, but we might want to fix that. And so I'll show you what I would do. But we're not done rounding this anyhow, because although that looks relatively round, and if I hit smoothing, well, we'll deal with the color in just a bit. It's pretty smooth, and if we rendered it, it would look fine. But the top is still very, very sharp right here. So I'm going to go back to flat. See, this edge right here is very sharp. So we'll go back into object mode, or edit mode, sorry. And in edge selection, I'm going to Shift Alt and click this top edge. And I'll also get the face sort of colored in like that. Okay, so I'm just selecting this edge, and I don't want to do it little by little. I'm going to go hold Shift and Alt, and that'll select the whole thing. I'll do the same thing for the bottom right there. Okay, and then I'm going to bevel that. I'm going to go Control B, and I'm going to pull, and that will start creating a space along the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to pull down a little ways, not too much, just a bit. And I'm going to roll my mouse wheel up again. 1, 2, I think is probably enough. Click, and let's deselect and see what we've got. So we've added edge loops or loop cuts. All right, all of this stuff. Now, if I go back into object mode, so that I'm just hitting Tab to do that. All right, and I hit smooth. You can see we now have a rounded top and a rounded corner. Let's look at the quads. Okay, so once again, I still have 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a quad there, and I have some little quads. Okay, all of these things all up here are quads. Okay, but again, the top, when I do Control R, you see the way it goes? Here, I'll zoom in. Control R. No, it's over there. Let's grab that and pull it down. Okay, you see the way that cut went all the way through here, but not through the top. Let's get rid of that. So, we could leave it like this, and that would render just fine, and it will take a material nicely. You may have some trouble in games, I'm not sure, but you may have some trouble with texturing this, or UV unwrapping it a little bit, or certainly deforming it. You could bend it, it's all one piece. Not that you want to bend a night table anyhow. And so in the past, I often just left them. And it is fine. It would reduce the poly count if we don't fix it. And I have half a mind just to leave it like that. But really what we can do is we can make this quads and this quads as well. And so what we'll do is we will, in face selection, I'm going to select that upper face, scroll around and shift and click the bottom face, and I'm going to go X to delete and choose faces and get rid of them. And now I have that. All of this stuff, I just hit A to select it all, is all quads, four-sided polygons. And if I needed, by the way, to rebuild that face as an n-gon, just click the edge, or go to edge selection, shift alt and click, and I get the whole thing, and just hit F, and I'm right back where I was. Okay, but that's not what we're going to do. Now, in terms of filling this, one way is to select that whole edge, come over to Mesh, Faces, Grid Fill, and then you can choose the span here, and you can adjust this. I don't particularly like it in this model. I don't think it looks very nice, and we get some weird whatever. That one's not too bad actually right there. Relatively nice and square. 7, the span of 7. That's increased my poly count, but I'm going to be increasing it no matter what. If I just come out of there and go back into object mode, you know, you don't see anything different. How well would that take a subdivision surface if we needed one, which I don't think we do. Looks like it would take it pretty good, but let's just delete that. Never mind. Let's go back. And I'm just going to delete those again. And so I think what I would probably do in this case is in vertex selection, what I would do is I would, you see I've got a quad right here. I'll show you with faces. There, right there. Okay, that's a quad. 4 vertices, 1, 2, and 3, 4 at the bottom. And what I would do probably is in vertex selection, I would select this point. See, this one is joined to the other one. This one I would take and I would come down and I would find the corresponding point here, and I'd hit F to make a face. That will create that line, and now I can join in edge selection this edge and this edge. It will fill in, it will grab this edge and the top edge if I hit F. There's the top. Come on, keep going. It'll, okay, watch F. And that makes a face, and it is a quad. 1, 2, and 2 points at the bottom. If I repeat that with this point, now I can grab this point and this point if I get all the right ones. And this point and this point, and F, I can make another face. And these are 4-sided polygons. All right, so I will do that for all of these, and then you'll see. Now a quick way to do this is to switch to edge selection, select that edge with the 2 vertices there, they're selected, and hold down shift, and this edge, no, make sure you get the right edge. That's exactly what I was going to say. That edge, F. Or I'll do it again from this side. This one, which gets that vertex and that vertex. You'll come all the way down to the bottom to the corresponding one. Just don't get the wrong one. F. This one. And this one, F. Now, these seem to just continue along. So these edges come up and then they continue. All right? You can't see that. Let's come over here. See, my edge goes like that. Now, if I select this edge and this edge, the big edge, I go into vertex, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 vertices, F to make a face. That's just a very big quad. I'm going to do the same thing down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, F. 1, 2, I'm just rebuilding. 3, no, not that one, Control Z, 3, 4, F. Or edge selection, that edge, this edge, F. This edge, and this one, F. This one, and finally this one, F. There's the top rebuilt. Control R. The loop goes all the way through. That would be helpful if you need to put edge loops and slide them along. We can talk about why you do that later. Well, that's just the top. All quads and the sides, not the bottom. I don't feel like redoing that, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this in half and I'm going to copy the top to the bottom. And the way I'll do that is I'll look in front view, number 1 front view, and I'm going to hover my mouse over the object and go Control R. I'm going to scroll, I'm going to just move my mouse until I get a horizontal line. It'll go right in the middle. I'm going to click to accept and then right click to finalize that. I've got now a line through that. So if I go there, you see I've split this all the way along, right there in the middle. Front view again, I want to cut off this bottom part. And the way to grab a whole bunch of polys or vertices or whatever is to use the box select. If I hit B and I drag up, I can select this whole area. The problem is I just selected what is in my view. If I scroll around, I didn't get any of this stuff. I want to delete this bottom stuff, by the way, and copy the top. So back in the front view, A to deselect. I'm going to go switch to wireframe right down here, or Z, and choose solid Z wireframe. You can do this in face selection or vertex selection or whatever. I'll do it like this. I'm going to hold B and I'm going to bring my mouse up. And if I just box select around there, I didn't get anything. Let's try again. Maybe right down here. I may not get everything selected that I want to. I want to get this stuff as well, but I did go all the way around at least. So that's not what I want. I want to be, and I want to include all of this, the whole bottom half. I'm going to come out of wireframe. I don't need to be there anymore, and you will see that I've selected all that. There was no bottom on this, all right? That was the whole issue. I'm going to hit X and faces. And now, if I select, I've got just the top part, all right, which was closed in. Let's go from 1. And I want to mirror this to the bottom. I can just copy. I'm going to mirror it. So I'm going to pull this with the Z arrow above the 3D cursor, which is this red and white circle, which happens to be lying on the X-axis and on the Z or Z-axis. So I'm going to select my object and I'm going to pull it just above that, and that will act as my center or my pivot point. So when I mirror this object, it will mirror exactly across this middle point or this 3D cursor. So with the object right there above the 3D cursor, I'm going to come over to the modifiers here. You can roll your mouse wheel, by the way, to move this, or you can pull this out. With the wrench selected, add modifier, mirror, and I'm going to choose the Z-axis, and uncheck X. And you can see my other piece, which is the exact copy of the top right there, back in the front view. I'm going to turn on clipping, and what that's going to do is that's going to, when I move this, I'm going to move this into position so that they join. If I let go and I have clipping on, the vertices right along the middle here are joined. So if I now let go and then pull, they stay stuck together. So I can do that, and then I can say, okay, how wide do I want my table to be? Just like that on my tabletop. Let's deselect and come back into object mode and look at it. I now have the top and the bottom filled in. I'm going to hit apply. A good rule of thumb is to go back in edit mode, hit A, and then just in case some of the points aren't merged, hit W, and then remove doubles. And I had nothing, everything was just fine. So there is my tabletop. Okay. Now, by the way, in edit mode, Control R, my edge loop now goes all the way through. Now, Why is that important? Well, it's important if you add a subdivision surface and you need to add edge loops to control the flow or sharpen up edges, or if I want to just quickly convert this to a circle and do that kind of thing. Not that I would. That's important. So yeah, so we've got it all in quads. Okay, there is our tabletop. Now, as I look at it, it looks a little bit thin. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a little bit thicker in the Z-axis. But I'm going to click N to come over here at the same time. I'm going to look at scale here. I'm going to go SZ and pull it. And make it thicker like that. Now I've changed this in the Z. And I probably won't manipulate this anymore, but a good rule of thumb, in case I need to do some more work on this, is to reset the scale with the new size. Or new rotation if I've rotated this, but I haven't. Watch this number over here. If I go Control A and choose Apply Scale, watch these numbers here. Control A, Scale. It goes back to 1. It means this is the new dimensions for this object. We're resetting it at 1 and we'll start again from there. So it's all sort of like a uniform scale, and any manipulations I do on this will not be weird. That wasn't very well explained, but that's just a good rule of thumb to do. Anyways, hit N to close out. Won't worry about that. Okay, so there's my tabletop. Now, hopefully that's not too rounded for you and you like that shape. There's ways to change that, but we're not going to bother with that in this video. Cool. We've got our little tabletop. 1, the 3D cursor is right in the middle. This will determine where a new object is created when we create another object, which I'm going to do right now. I'm going to go Shift A, Mesh, Cube. And you can see I get a cube very, very large. Now, I'm going to hit N and open that up again. And you can see the scale of this is 1, 1, 1. Now, watch this. If I just start scaling this in object mode, which is a natural thing to do, to about the size I would want as a table leg. Let's see, I'll pull it down. That might be too small. It might be just right. I'll make it a bit bigger. Okay. I get some new sizes. But if I go Control A now and hit scale, I set it back to 1. And that's, again, a good rule of thumb. So I've got this cube here, and I'm going to extend this down to make a leg. Because it's going to be joined to the top there, I don't need this top face here. Let's go into edit mode. Okay, deselect, and to close that side. I don't need this. It's just going to be hidden. So I'm going to go X, delete faces. If I hit A to select the whole thing and then I pull it up again like that, you see, you don't see that top face. You're also not going to see this bottom one. That's going to be on the floor. So I could go X, faces, and get rid of that one as well. If you were to render right from there, yeah, you'd see a hole. But I mean, chances are you're not going to. But that's obviously not the right size or position for that. So I'm going to hit A to select just this object. I'm in edit mode, so if I hit A, I'm only going to select that. I'm not going to select my tabletop. And I want to see from the bottom. If I hit 7, I'm looking from the top. If I go Control 7, I'm looking from the bottom. So there it is. I'm going to move this into a sort of a corner position. So I'm going to hit G while it's selected for grab. And I'm going to bring it over to there. That's good enough for me. Yeah, right there. Okay, so front view again. I've got the one of the left leg there, and it's not long enough yet. So we're going to lengthen it. So I'm going to go into edge selection, or I just did the Control tab, but you could select it right down there. Shift Alt and click that whole edge instead of just holding Shift and getting all 4 edges, which you can do if you like to. Front view again. And I'm going to pull this down until I like the height. You know, just a little kid's table. Just decide how long you want it to be. I'm going to do that. So I pulled it down. I still got that selected. Let's make this narrow in a little bit, taper in. So with that whole thing selected, let's hit S to scale in all directions at S and just pull in just a little ways, like as much as you want to narrow that leg like that. Deselect, and let's go back into object mode and have a look. Now there's a couple of things to note. First of all, it's very, very sharp. And second of all, if I selected my transform tool here that allows me to like pull it this way and that way is way over here, but my object is there. And that's because when we created this object, it started as a cube, right? It came in and this was the origin point for it. I'm going to come over here with my leg selected, set origin, origin to geometry, origin to the new geometry. There, and now my transform tool is right on my object. So I do that very frequently whenever I edit stuff. Okay, well, we need to work on this because it's not round enough. So let's go into edit mode. And we'll do the same kind of thing we did here. I'm going to select the vertical edges and make them rounder. So I'm going to click on there, hold down shift and click there, and let's get the other edge as well. There's 4 edges there. We've got them all selected, and we're going to bevel these to make them rounder. Go Control B. You see my cross in the dotted line, and pull, and you'll start to cut into it. And then, you know, you don't want to pull too much, and you certainly don't want them to overlap. Just pull a little bit so you get a region like that, and go 1, 2. That's probably good enough. Deselect. Go back into object mode and have a look at that. Okay, so we've added some segments. Whether that's enough or not, let's click smooth. That looks pretty nice right there, right? And that would just rest on the ground till we would have that. Okay, now I'm going to just move it out of the way for a second. We don't need to do anything about the top and the bottom because they're not going to be visible, so that's just fine. I'll go to front view and I'll just make sure this is in. Now, to see the very bottom, I'm going to hit Control 7. All right, and it looks like that. Now, how do we want to position these legs? Probably the easiest way is just to copy them. No one's going to measure that they're perfectly, you know, in line. So I'm going to go Shift D, and I'm going to pull the X, and I'm going to pull it over there. All right, and I'm going to hold Shift and this one, and I'm going to go Shift D, and I'm going to pull in the Y, and I get 4 legs relatively in the right position. Now, if it was important to have them in the exact middle, I could delete the ones that I just did. X, delete. And with this one selected and my 3D cursor right in the middle of this table, and if that happened to get moved, because it's very easy to click in the wrong place, just go Shift and C, Shift and C, and it puts it right back in. With this one selected, I can mirror this over, come over, choose mirror, and you may have to do something else. Okay, there's something else I should have told you. With this object selected and the 3D cursor here, set origin to the 3D cursor. This is the origin I want to mirror across. I want to mirror across this object. I want to mirror across the origin here, and that'll make it go on to that side. So go mirror in the X, there it is, and I should be able to also mirror in the Y. And now they're exactly in the right positions, and I can click apply that mirror, and I'm done. And I have tabletop and legs. So hopefully that last step was relatively clear. Just experiment with that. If your mirror is ever not working, it's often because the origin is on the object itself. It's like trying to mirror across itself. You have to mirror across something else. And in which case it was the middle of the table. So mirrored across to the other side. Cool. Now, we have our 3D cursor right in the middle, front view, which is perfect because we're going to create the drawer region. And I think the way I'm going to do this is simply by bringing in, we could do a cube. I often like using a plane. So I'm going to go Shift A, Mesh, Plane, and I get this. Bring it down a little ways. I'm going to bring this right down to about the level I would want my drawer at. I'm going to go into edit mode, select it, and just hit S. Start pulling it in till I like the way it cuts the legs. Okay, let's see. Maybe a little bit more. S. Okay, now, if I hit E to extrude and I just pull this up, I get the bottom section of my table. See, like that. And I got a little, it's filled in so I could put a drawer in there. But it's very sharp. It's very sharp along the bottom. I'm really not going to see the top. I'm not going to see the inside. So let's see. Let's select this top piece and hide it for the moment. H. Okay, so now I can see my cube there. That's fine. I don't need the top. So I could come in and in face selection, I could select it X faces. Okay, it's gone. Let's go back to object mode and to re-show the top, Alt H. Back to here. Okay, great. That's fine. Didn't change anything. This is still sharp. Okay, so what are we going to do? Let's go into edit mode. And in edge selection, let's Shift Alt and click the bottom edges. I'm holding down Shift and I'm getting all the bottom edges. We're going to bevel this again. With all those edges selected, I'm going to go Control B and pull until I start to see a little space. I'm going to roll my mouse up 1, 2. It's probably good enough. Oops. See, I just right clicked and my 3D cursor went there. It really doesn't matter. Shift C to bring it back. A to deselect, back into object mode. I've rounded this off. With it selected, let's press smooth. And I start to get some weird colorations, kind of a glow. All right, now keep in mind that by doing this here, let's isolate just this piece so we can work on it. Instead of H to hide, Alt H to bring it back, with this object selected, Shift H, I've got just this piece. Okay, let's go into edit mode. Okay, so we got that smoothing issue, and we also, in vertex selection, have two. This is one quad, eh? That's great. There we go. We don't even have to worry about that. Well, then let's try to deal with the smoothing. Okay, it looks kind of odd here. You can come over here to this triangle and try the auto smooth. And that may be acceptable with this value here. Let's go Alt H to bring everything back. And that pretty much is good enough, I think, for this particular model. Another way to do things is to select your model, and if you've got that kind of weird ghosting, glowing here and dark here, you can just try adding edge loops. For example, Control R, and I'm going to roll my mouse up to get 2. Click. Let's look from the front. Here, let's redo that from the front. Okay, it looks kind of sickly colored there. Control R, 2 edge loops. See it changed colors already? Scale in the X. That's going to pull them out to the side. I'm going to pull them right under the legs so they disappear. See the way it's much more consistent? This side doesn't look very good, so that's the right side. Control R, 2. Now these edges are going all the way through to the other side, so I don't have to do the other side as well. Okay, watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to scale these in the Y until they're underneath the legs. Doesn't really matter because they're not going to be visible anyhow. And now if I look at it, I pretty much have adjusted that issue. Okay, so there we go. We're almost on our table. We need to put a little drawer on this and a little handle. Okay, and so there are a lot of ways to do this. One thing I like to point out to you is reusing pieces. So I'm going to select this. Okay, here's the front. So I'm just turning a bit. This is the front. Go into edit mode, and in face selection, if I just click right here, okay, I'm going to go into wireframe so you can just see this. This piece right here is in the ideal location. It's almost the right size to start making a drawer. So instead of bringing in a new plane or a new cube, I can select a piece of my existing model, Go Shift D to copy it or duplicate it. Let's pull it out. Okay, I haven't lost the one here. I've just got this one. But I want to make this a separate object from this. Right now, if I select it all, it's a piece of this. I want to use this to make the drawer. So with it selected, I'm going to hit P and separate it by selection. Go back into object mode, and I now can select either the bottom here or this. But wait, my transform tool didn't move when I selected this, because this piece was made from this. So the origin of this piece still thinks it's with this. That made sense. So select it, set origin to geometry, to this geometry. Now I can move this piece, and hey, now it's not perfect yet, but if I go into edit mode and I just hit S to scale, I can start saying, okay, I like the width of that. Don't like the position yet. And maybe the height, scale in the Z a little bit. Let's try that. Let's bring it close. I'm just moving it in the Z direction. And let's give it some thickness by extruding. Let's E and pull out in the Y direction. E and use the arrow, pull out in the Y to give it some thickness. Now it's going to have some funny colors because I made it from this piece and it inherited anything on this piece, which is the smoothing. So let's go back into object mode and make this flat. Just for now. And let's see, imagine if I pulled that in and it was touching, which it might not be yet. Yeah, it was. Just wait till the white line disappears there. There we go. Yeah, I could have my drawer right there. Maybe I needed a bit bigger. Let's select it all and scale in the Z, SZ. Maybe it should be like that. Okay, but let's see. I'm not going to need the back edge or the back face, so I'm going to X faces. Let's get rid of that. And it's not very round. It's not very smooth. So we're going to need to round this as well. And I think we're going to need to round the corners a little bit. So it's kind of like this. And this top edge. You'll see what I mean. So let's go into edit. And in edge selection, select these edges holding shift. And let's bevel these a little bit. Control B. 1, 2. I'll put 3. Okay. Let's deselect and have a look at that. Imagine that's in there. Is that too rounded for a drawer? Maybe, but this is cartoony, so it's up to you if you want to do it that much. So we got that. I wonder a little bit if this is big enough. Let's see if I can bring that down. That's good enough. Okay, so we got that drawer, but it's still too sharp here along this edge right there. So we're going to bevel that as well. So select that and Control B, pull down, not too much. 1, 2, roll my mouse up to deselect, and I get that, and I hit smooth, and I start getting some strange smoothing artifacts or issues. Okay, well, we can try a couple things. Just adjust it so you can see. Yeah, that doesn't look very good. Come over to the triangle and choose auto smooth. Okay, auto smooth. It's defaults to 30. Click it. That didn't really do much. Well, let's focus in just on this piece. Shift H, because I want to work on it anyhow. You'll notice that if I try to put an edge loop, it stops. It doesn't go across the top, and that's because, once again, this is not a quad. So I've already deleted the back. I'm going to delete this face. Now, in edge selection, do I want to join these all up again the same way, or do I want to try selecting the edge, Shift Alt and clicking it? Do I want to try faces grid fill, which will do it automatically, and choose a span that you like? 3 looks pretty nice. What if I just leave it like that? The smoothing issue seems to be gone. Alt H to bring everything else back. Maybe that's fine. Maybe I don't need to spend the time. Okay. So we got that. Let's go back and look at the reference picture. All right, so we got this, the legs. Now they may bend them in, it's cartoony. That's fine. Okay, this might even be now a little bit thick, scale in the Z. And I may have to reposition it on here, make sure everything's cool. That's fine. Do I need to apply the scale? Control A, scale, it's always a good idea. I think this still looks a little, no, this doesn't look like it's on yet. All right, still looks a little, not high enough, scale in the Z. And Control A, apply scale. Yeah, let's leave it at that. Cool. All right, so we're almost done our table. So the one other thing we need to do is put a handle on it. Let's select this drawer, and because we've moved some stuff around, the transform tool with the arrows is not quite on it. So let's set origin to geometry and pop it right back on. And because I want to create the handle right on the drawer, I don't want to create the handle back here. In other words, my 3D cursor is right in the middle of the tabletop. When I create the handle, I want it to be closer to the drawer. So with the drawer selected, I'm going to go Shift S, snap the cursor, which is the 3D cursor, to what is selected, which is my drawer. And now the 3D cursor, the red and white circle, is right there. So here, I'll just go Shift C. I'll show you this one time. I'll just bring it back to the middle. I'm going to bring in another plane, by the way, to do this. And you can see I brought the plane right in the middle. Versus if I select the drawer, Shift S, snap the cursor to selected, and I bring in a plane. I don't know if you're going to be able to tell much difference, but it showed up down there where it's where I want it. So that's what I want, is a plane. And I'm going to show you a method that I like to use to make handles. I'm going to Edit Mode, switch to Vertex, make sure all four vertices are selected, Alt-M, merge them in the center. So if I pull, I now have 1 point right there that I created from a plane. That's all I want, is 1 point. I'm going to hit 7 to look from the top view, and I'm going to pull it out until I can see it there. I might pull it out to this first grid unit there. All right, I'm going to use this point to build a handle. The way I'm going to do it is in Edit Mode. I am in Edit Mode. I'm going to hit E to extrude, and I'm going to pull maybe down, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4 grid units. Hit E to extrude, and I'm going to pull it into the table. Now I can't see where it is, so I'm going to go Z wireframe. All right, now this is my drawer right here, and this is the table top, and my handle is far from the drawer. So I'm going to go A to select everything, pull it in a little bit, and imagine this point going into the drawer. How far out do I want my handle? Now this can all be adjusted in a moment. And you're going, boy, this looks like a letter L. How are you going to get a handle out of that? Well, I'll show you. All right, so I've got these 3 points. I'm going to select this point right here, and I want to copy this whole thing, flip it, mirror it essentially over there. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to select this point and go Shift S, cursor to selected. I brought my 3D cursor here. Now, if I use this 3D cursor as a pivot, I can rotate this right along that pivot point. So I'm going to go Shift D to copy it and switch my pivot point to 3D cursor. I'm going to rotate that copy around the Y, 90, 180, 180. R, Y, 180, bang. And it just rotated the copy right around the Y. The only thing is, I've got this point and this point, this point and this point, and down there, I've actually got 2 points. Watch this. Pull apart. I don't know if you can tell. There's 1 point there, 1 point there. And we want them to be merged. Now, if I just box select, I still get just 1 point. So what we need to do is in wireframe, that lets you look through, grab them, Alt-M, merge at center. If I wasn't in wireframe and I was selecting that way, I may have just selected 1 point and not got the 2 points to merge them together. I now have 1 point. Now the truth is, I don't really even need this point. I've got this one, and that determines the face right there. So I can actually select it, and X, don't just delete, because that'll break. I mean, if that happens, you just go F to make a face. But otherwise, X, dissolve that, and it keeps the face there. Okay, so what have we done? Well, first of all, that's going to be too wide for a handle, so let's SX, scale in the X. So there we go. I like that length for the handle. Now let's go back into solid. Okay. It's not very rounded or anything. It looks very sharp, so let's fix that. Let's select that point, and let's bevel. But you can't just go Control B on these vertices. It doesn't do anything. With those points selected, you got to go Control Shift B. Control Shift B, and then pull. And you see the way it splits the vertices? Pull it like that, and then go 1, 2. That's probably good enough. You can still move your mouse to bring them close or far. Just like that. Go into object mode. And here's what I've got. I'm going to make this into a rounded handle. The way I'm going to do that is in object mode, not edit mode. In object mode, I'm going to go Alt C, and choose Convert to Curve. Then up here, I'm going to choose this button, Fill, Full, and Pull Up Bevel. See what's happening? Looks very sharp though, so just increase resolution by 2 or 3 and click Smooth. I can continue to make it bigger if I want, and I can adjust the resolution a little bit. Don't bring it up too high. That's fine. Just bring it in as much as you need to make a nice handle. Adjust the size of this. You can put on a subdivision surface if you want. I don't think you need to. That handle might be a bit wide. Let's scale in the X. Let's have a look at the diagram now. Here it is. Alright, I think that's good enough, and we are basically done modeling our little table. Let's add a little bit and some materials for this. So let's send the cursor back to the middle first of all, Shift C, because we're going to bring in a plane, and we'll make a little ground floor. Mesh plane. Let's bring it down. Look from the front. And you'll notice that the 3D cursor, or my transform tool, is, sorry, that's what I meant, is right up here. It's not on the plane because I brought the plane in there. Actually, it's because of this. Don't forget to switch back to median point. That's very important once you've done your pivoting, so that you can put your transform tool on your object. So I've got that plane, and I'm going to just hit S5. Oh, is that too much? Yeah, let's just scale it in my hand. Just make a little floor region there. Okay, so I've got that. And if we go into rendered view, you start to see something. It looks very dark, so we're going to add a light. So it's going to go Shift Z is the shortcut. Shift Z to go in, Shift Z to come out. Don't forget to save. We're going to go Shift A, Mesh, Plane, and we're going to make some lights. I'm going to bring them over here, and I'm going to scale it a bit. Let's rotate this in the Y. And I think before I do anything, I'm going to Shift D and copy it over here. I'm going to rotate this in the Y again. So there's like that. And I'm going to take this one and rotate in the Z to kind of face my object. I'll bring it up. I'll do the same thing with this one. Oh, rotate in the Z. We'll do that. It's be in slightly different positions and different sizes and stuff. And I'm going to use these as lights, and I like to have them in another layer. Okay, now right now they're just planes. You're going, what do you mean lights? They're planes, but we're going to make them into lights. I'm going to move these M with them selected and choose this layer here. So they're there and my model's there. That way I can just look at my model or I can look at my lights. And if I need them to do them together, I'm going to hold shift and I've got both of them. Okay, now if I just go shift Z, I just have that. I'm going to select this one and let's come up to the materials tab, which is this circle here. Click it and click new. Make sure we're in cycles. And under here, surface, I'm going to choose emission. And that makes this emit light. And I'm going to choose maybe 3. And let's just go shift Z. And you can see it's releasing some light and it's very bright. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing for this one, but I'm going to choose a different material. So I'm going to click new for material. Choose emission. Maybe I'll choose 5. This one I'm going to choose to switch to this color. And this one I'm going to move to sort of a bluish color. Okay. I'm going to take, let's say, one of these. And you know what? I'll just make a new one. I'm going to bring it to the back. Rotate X. And I'm going to make one more with the emission material. Make it 2. Let's see what this is looking like. Okay, I don't want it to be too bright or anything. And I don't have any real materials on yet, so let's move this one, M, move it to the second layer as well, so I've got that. Okay, so here's the thing. I'm going to add some materials. If I just go Shift Z, by the way, because I don't have that layer selected. Rather like that. And one thing we could do is we can hide these from the camera when I do a render, or if I do a preview render, Shift Z. You don't want to see those, so what you can do is select it and under the square, come down, scroll a bit to the very bottom where it says cycle settings, and uncheck camera. Shift Z, and it won't show up in the camera. So let's do that for this one. Uncheck camera, and this one on the square. Uncheck camera. Okay, and now you can see your stool. Okay, so let's just maybe bring that there and up. Maybe this one up. Okay, well, let's put some materials on this. Now, we have our little desk, and we've got our floor, but we don't have any colors. So what I like to do is grab these little angular lines, and then on this part, choose to UV image editor. So I've just pulled up a little window here by clicking there. Click there, make it UV image editor, and that allows us to open an image within Blender here on the side. Image, open image, and I'm going to find that reference image. There it is, and I've got it there, and I can color pick from it. So with my tabletop selected, I'm going to create a material. So I'm going to click the new material. Okay, and if I just scroll down, I'm going to leave the surface as diffuse, and under here where it says color, I'm going to click, and then with the eyedropper, I'm going to select the eyedropper, and I'm going to click here and select the color. Now I can't really see it, so I'm going to switch over to material. You can see I've applied that material and that color to the top. Now all I need to do is with this material selected, and I can call this, say, desk. I'm going to select another piece, click here, and choose desk. This part, desk. This part, desk. Alright, so I'm getting similar colors to those in the diagram. I also want this yellow, so I'm going to select this piece, click new to create a new material. Under color here, click, use the eyedropper, choose it, yellow. I can rename it here. Handle. Save. Let's do the floor as well. Now they have a wood floor, but let's just select the floor. New. I'll call it floor. Under color, eyedropper. Now you can select various parts of this, but I'll just do it there. Maybe I want it a bit darker than that. So maybe I'll choose there. Okay. Let's shift and click the lights. Shift Z. And we can start to see our table. Alright, I think what I want to do is let's rotate this a bit more, and I want to look at this one. I might boost the strength to 5 on that one. Okay, so the last thing that we need to do is to bring a camera in. Shift A, camera. I'm going to move it back. I'm going to move it up a little, and then I'm going to press N, and I'm going to choose lock camera to view. I'm going to press N to close that, and I'm going to press 0 to look through the camera. Now whenever I move this, in fact, I can just look on the first layer. The camera's still there. I can zoom in and out. I can also hit the home button, home, to maximize that view, which I find quite nice. And find the angle that you like with that. Shift and click that other layer for the lights, and then unfortunately the lights are there, but Shift Z, and you can see your table. Alright, so with that done, save. We can get ready to render a little view of this. So let's click on the camera there. I'm going to get rid of this background image for now. I'm just going to pull on these lines until I see the arrow and release. I'm going to choose 65% for my size, my resolution. That's fine. Come down to sampling. I'm going to choose 225 is going to be okay, and I'm going to choose denoising. Again, I'm using 2.79, so I don't know what 2.8 is like really. I'm going to save, and I'm going to make sure I've selected that other layer, and I'm going to press F12 for it to render. And we'll see how this thing turns out. It's a relatively simple scene, so it should render pretty fast. Note that we just have the diffuse materials. There's no, real reflections, and it's not shiny, but it's got sort of a cartoony, simple pastel kind of a look to it that I find appealing at this point in time in my life with kids. But you can see we have a cute little smooth table that was pretty easy to make and pretty low poly. And what we'll do in the next video is we'll create a little lamp to set on top of this, and then a little alarm clock. Again, trying to go very simple in creating these things. We'll just let that finish rendering through, and then we will save the image, and we'll get ready for the next time. Now, it's possible that I may not have enough samples, and my lighting may not be perfect. Let me come to this position. Yeah, I've got a little bit of distortion here. The lighting, unless I don't think the denoising is going to fix that. And so I can, by the way, if you lose your render, you can go back to show hide render. I would have to work on that, and I think what I'll do, I'll get out of camera view. Let's bring this, let's just adjust these lights a little bit. I'll maybe make this one a little bit bigger. Let's just have a look through the camera, how bright it is. I like that brightness, by the way. Oh, I adjusted the camera. set my samples a little bit higher. That may or may not be enough, but let's look through the camera. Okay, so I'll let it render and we'll check it out. Here's our cute little nightstand. And one thing we can do, by the way, if we want to, is we can change this background color, and that'll adjust how much light is also being cast on our model by the environment. So I'll come out of the render, and I'm going to come over to this globe, the world, click on use nodes, and I'm going to change the background color darker, make it sort of black. And let's have a look in Shift Z, and there you can see that will have cut down the light as well. And I think I'll probably render from that point and keep it like that. So in our next video we will create a little lamp to put on that. Thanks for watching.